The early morning breeze drifted gently through Brokerage Estates, rustling the magnolia trees that lined the neighborhood's identical sidewalks. From a distance, the subdivision looked like a planned postcard, every lawn mowed to regulation, length, garbage bins precisely stored, shutters in HOA-approved shades of beige and white. But beneath the surface, a tension stirred, one that would soon erupt from the most unlikely of places. Nathan Delaney had never intended to make waves. A freelance graphic designer and full-time single father, he'd bought the house at the end of Hemlock Lane because it was quiet, safe, and had a backyard big enough for his daughter Ellie's trampoline and his beloved herb garden. That Tuesday morning, Nathan finished hammering in the final nail on a handcrafted wooden sign he designed over the weekend. The plaque, mounted on a clean oak post near his driveway, read Brokerage Farms, Estate, 2015. It was modest, elegant, serif font, a subtle green accent, no larger than a real estate flyer, a nod to the backyard gardening hobby that had grown into a registered small business. Ellie came skipping down the driveway, her backpack bouncing. "Dad, it looks awesome. It's like we're in a movie." Nathan smiled. "Well, if the movie's about basil and tomatoes, we're the stars." What neither of them noticed was the figure in a windbreaker pausing 3 houses down. Karen Holland, president of the Brokerage Estates HOA, squinted through oversized sunglasses, her gaze locked on the sign. She held her phone low, snapped a photo, and tapped the HOA app on her screen. 2 hours later, Nathan received a notification. Violation notice. Unauthorized commercial signature blinked. Rereading the message. "What?" He replied promptly, attaching a PDF of his federal trademark certificate and explaining that Brokerage Farms was a registered name, not a business operated from the premises. No customers came by, no sales occurred at the property. The sign, he wrote, was a personal decorative marker. By nightfall, a second notice arrived, firmer in tone. The email included a citation of HA Regulation 5.2.3, which forbade any display of commercial signage visible from the street. Nathan opened the attached bylaws. The wording was vague, possibly outdated, and nowhere did it mention registered trademarks or homeowner expression. The next day, Karen herself showed up unannounced. Nathan was trimming mint near the porch when he heard the firm rap on the door. Karen stood with her clipboard in hand and that expression he'd come to associate with every email she'd ever sent the community. Performative concern laced with contour. "Oh, Mr. Delaney," she said, "I came by to remind you that failure to remove that sign within 48 hours will result in daily fines." Nathan wiped his hands and met her eyes. "I read the regulation, and the sign isn't promoting anything. It's a federally registered name. Mine. It's decorative," she smirked, almost condescending. "Decorative or not, it implies commerce. This is a residential neighborhood. We have to maintain the aesthetic." "Aesthetic," he echoed. "Karen, there are flamingo statues and gnome gardens 3 blocks over. They're within the guidelines," she said coolly. "Your sign isn't." Nathan stepped onto the porch. "You're threatening to fine me for a piece of wood with my own name on it. Is that really what the HOA asked for?" Karen's smile vanished. "You don't get to decide what the HOA is for. The board does." She turned without another word, heels clicking sharply on the pavement. Nathan stared at her retreating form, a knot tightening in his gut. He wasn't a confrontational man, but something about Karen's tone, the way she spoke like a ruler, not a neighbor, struck a nerve. By Friday, Nathan's mailbox was stuffed with printed warnings. Ellie noticed. "Are we in trouble, Daddy?" "No, kiddo," he said, hugging her tightly. "We just put up a sign. That's all." But deep down, he sensed it wasn't just about the sign anymore. Karen wasn't protecting the community. She was enforcing control, and she'd found her next target. What Nathan didn't yet realize was that Karen wasn't just planning to find him. She was preparing to dismantle everything behind that name, Brokerage Farms, piece by piece, and she was about to drag the entire neighborhood into the fight. By the following Monday, Brookridge Estates was buzzing, not from lawnmowers or kids on bikes but from whispers. Nathan's sign had become the talk of the neighborhood. And not in the casual way people gossiped about whose hydrangeas looked best this season. Residents were growing uneasy, not because of the sign itself. It was elegant, understated, but because of what Karen was doing in response. Nathan had thought the violation notices were the end of it. He'd filed a response referencing his trademark registration, and even offered to add a disclaimer under the sign, not for business use. But Karen never replied. Instead, things got quiet to quiet. It wasn't until Carlos Mendoza, Nathan's next-door neighbor and a retired accountant, knocked on his door with a grim expression that Nathan learned the truth. She held a closed board meeting Saturday night, Carlos said, handing him a crumpled sheet of paper. Didn't post it to the HOA calendar. No resident notice. Just the 5 board members. And her. Nathan unfolded the paper photocopies of meeting minutes Carlos had somehow acquired. Motion 3. To approve special assessment in the amount of $82,000 for legal representation to protect the HOA's identity from encroaching commercial trademarks filed by residents. Nathan's eyes widened. $82,000. Divided across the neighborhood, Carlos confirmed. Every household's getting billed over $2,000. Karen's using HOA money to fight your trademark. She's trying to cancel my registration, Nathan said, disbelief giving way to anger. Carlos nodded. She's arguing that your trademark conflicts with the community name, claims your business is profiting off the HOA's identity. Nathan scoffed. I started Brokerage Farms 5 years ago. The name wasn't even intentional, it's just where I live. She knows that. But she doesn't care. This is about control. She wants you erased from the record. Nathan looked down at his daughter Ellie playing in the yard. She had no idea what was brewing. Why would the board agree to this? He asked. Karen's board, Carlos said. She stacked it over the years. People either moved away or checked out. She's got 3 rubber stamps and 1 treasurer who's scared to push back. As if on cue, Nathan's phone buzzed. A new email from the HOA portal. Subject line. Special assessment notice. There it was in black and white. $2,216.20 due by the end of the month. Nathan gritted his teeth. She's forcing people to pay legal fees to fight me. And she didn't even ask the residents. Carlos leaned in. You need to go public. Nathan stared at the notice. His heart raced. He wasn't a fighter by nature, but this felt wrong. On every level, he wasn't violating any law. His business had nothing to do with the HOA. And now, 36 other families were being dragged into a legal war they didn't ask for. He logged into his laptop that night and started building a site www.brookridgefacts.org within hours. He uploaded copies of the HOA letters, the trademark certificate, and the board meeting minutes. He wrote a detailed post explaining everything from Karen's initial complaint to the $82,000 assessment. Then he shared the link on the neighborhood Facebook group with a single caption. They're spending your money to erase my name. Ask them why. By morning, the post had over 100 comments. Shannon from Maple Drive. I didn't vote for this assessment. Dug to streets over $2,000 to fight a plant sign. Leaner. In your homeowner. Is this even legal? Karen replied once. Late that afternoon, with a carefully worded statement, the HOA board is taking reasonable steps to protect our community's integrity. Any claims otherwise are misleading. But the tone was already shifting. Nathan watched from his front porch as neighbors slowed down while passing his home. Some gave thumbs up, others just nodded. A few even stopped to ask questions. Ellie came out with 2 cups of lemonade. Why is everyone talking about our sign? She asked. Nathan looked down at her. Because sometimes, sweetie, people in charge forget what they're supposed to be protecting. What are we going to do? She asked, her face serious. Nathan took a breath. We're going to tell the truth, loud enough that nobody can ignore it. And with that, the quiet suburban neighborhood began to wake up. Karen may have made her move behind closed doors, But Nathan had just opened every window. By the end of the week, Nathan's website had spread far beyond brokerage estates. Neighbors were sharing brokeragefacts.org with friends, co-workers, and even local journalists. The story struck a nerve in HOA, demanding over $82,000 to battle a small business owner over a name he'd legally registered 5 years earlier. Nathan knew the fight was no longer about a sign. It had become a battle for principle, one fueled by pride, pettiness, and unchecked power. But principles didn't come cheap. On Friday morning, a certified letter arrived at Nathan's door. It was from a law firm based 3 states away, one specializing in intellectual property disputes. According to the letter, the HOA had officially filed a petition to cancel Nathan's trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The language was heavy, the intent clear. The HOA was accusing Nathan of fraudulently registering a mark that, in their words, diluted and encroached upon the reputation and community identity of brokerage estates. Nathan stared at the document in disbelief. They're trying to erase my business name. That's not enforcement. That's sabotage. Carlos came over within the hour. We need to hit back fast. Do you have a lawyer? Nathan laughed bitterly. I freelance logos and package design for local bakeries. I don't have a lawyer on retainer. But he couldn't fight this alone. And he refused to let Karen bulldoze him with other people's money. He set up a legal defense fund on the website and posted a video of himself explaining the situation. He didn't play the victim. He didn't shout. He calmly explained how his herb garden had grown into brokerage farms, how he'd never sold a thing from his home, and how an HOA president with too much power had made it personal. Donations started coming. In small at first, $5 here, $10 there, then a $100 from a former resident of brokerage estates who wrote, Karen ruined this place years ago. Glad someone's standing up. By Sunday, the site had raised over $4,200. But Karen wasn't slowing down either. That same day, the HOA posted a community clarification letter on every residence door. It claimed Nathan had abused federal trademark laws to co-opt the brokerage name for private profit. It urged residents to support the legal initiative to preserve neighborhood identity. The letter was signed by all 5 board members though, as Nathan would soon learn. Not all of them had actually read it. Tensions in the community reached a breaking point at the next monthly board meeting. Karen refused to open the floor for public comment. A dozen residents showed up anyway, some with printed copies of the assessment notice, others with receipts of their dues payments. One woman, in her 60s, stood up and shouted, I'm on a fixed income, and you're asking me to pay $2,000 because you don't like someone's garden sign? Karen's face remained stone cold. Ma'am, this is a legal issue now. Carlos stepped forward. Then why hasn't the community seen a vote? Why weren't we informed before the funds were allocated? This isn't just poor leadership, it's authoritarian. Karen banged the gavel. This meeting is now closed. But the meeting didn't end. It spilled into the parking lot, where neighbors gathered in small groups, questioning everything they'd been told. Many had supported Karen for years. She kept the lawns neat, the pool clean, and the rules enforced. But now, it was clear she was willing to burn through everyone's money just to win a fight she'd started. Herself, back home, Nathan sat at his kitchen table, sorting through paperwork with Ellie quietly coloring beside him. She glanced up and asked, What's trademark mean again? It means we own the name Brokerage Farms, Nathan said gently. It means someone else can't take it from us. She nodded, returning to her drawing a sketch of their house with the little wooden sign up front. I think we should keep it, she whispered. Nathan smiled. We will, but we have to fight smart. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd been avoiding, an old college friend who now worked as a paralegal in Washington. Hey, Liz, I've got a mess on my hands, and I think I need your help. The legal gauntlet had officially begun, and Nathan wasn't backing down. Within 2 weeks, Brokerage Estates no longer felt like a neighborhood. It felt like a courtroom in slow motion. Conversations that once revolved around weather, lawn maintenance, or kids' birthday parties had shifted. Now, the talk was about bylaws, legal fees, and whether the whore had the right to spend tens of thousands of dollars to target a neighbor. Nathan's website had grown into more than a defense fund. It had become a hub for homeowners who felt left out, ignored, or railroaded. He began receiving anonymous tips from current and former HOA members. One email in particular stood out. Karen never consulted us before pushing the legal fund. She made it sound like Nathan was trying to sue the whore, not the other way around. Disillusioned board member, the very next morning, Carlos handed Nathan a crumpled HOA newsletter just delivered to each home. The HOA board stands united against trademark infringement, protecting brokerage's legacy. Beneath the headline, Karen wrote that anyone siding with Nathan was enabling commercial intrusion into residential space. She accused certain parties of trying to turn brokerage into a branded product, not a place of peace. Nathan's blood ran hot. She's turning me into a villain. Carlos rubbed his forehead. She's doing what tyrants do when people start asking questions, painting them as threats. But the cracks were showing at that Thursday's community meeting. One of the largest in years. Dozens of residents packed the clubhouse room. Folding chairs scraped the linoleum floor. Tension buzzed in the air. Karen sat at the front with her ever-composed expression, gavel at the ready. Before she could call the meeting to order, Shannon from Maple Drive stood up. She was soft-spoken, always had been. A retired teacher, she kept to herself, wore pressed blouses and gentle smells. But that night, her hands trembled with restrained frustration. I want to know why we weren't told about the $82,000 assessment before it was voted on, she asked clearly. Where is the transparency? Karen gave her a tight-lipped smile. The board has authority to make financial decisions in the interest of the community. Another voice rose. Doug, the Army veteran from Birchcourt, with whose money Karen turned defensive. This issue affects everyone. If we allow one resident to brand their home as brokerage farms, what's to stop others from doing the same? Nathan stood slowly at the back of the room, respectfully. Karen, my trademark was filed years ago. It's legally registered. No sales are conducted from my house. No signs have popped up since. This isn't about protecting the neighborhood. It's about punishing me for not backing down. A low murmur swept the room. Karen's eyes locked on him. Mr. Delaney, this meeting is for the board and community, not your personal crusade. Someone called from the side. He lives here too. And just like that, the silence broke. Voices rose. Some in support of Nathan, others confused or angry over the surprise assessments. A few still backed Karen. But the mood had shifted. People weren't afraid to question anymore. Lisa McConnell, the HOA treasurer, finally cleared her throat. She hadn't spoken in weeks. I would like to state for the record that I wasn't given time to review the legal retainer before the funds were allocated. I was told it was urgent. Karen's head turned, her smile faltering. You never said it was to fight a trademark, Lisa added. You told me it was a legal matter to protect community safety. Whispers, gasps. Karen slammed the gavel. This meeting is over. But no one moved. Nathan stepped forward. You're spending people's money without consent? That's not leadership. That's dictatorship. Karen stood. Then file a motion. Start a recall. But while I'm president, I will defend this neighborhood from becoming a billboard. She stormed out. The room erupted in low arguments, debates, side conversations. Carlos turned to Nathan. She's rattled. Nathan nodded. Good, because we just found our leverage. That night, Lisa reached out privately. She wanted to talk, off the record. What she would reveal would shift the entire battle and make Karen's position more precarious than anyone realized. But for now, the neighborhood had changed. No more whispered frustrations behind blinds. Now the residents were watching, listening, and finally asking, who was really protecting whom? The next morning, Nathan opened his front door to grab the newspaper and noticed a bright red envelope stuck in his mailbox. The bold letters on the front read, "Final notice lien imminent." Inside was a letter from the HOA's legal counsel, addressed formally, "Dear Mr. Delaney, due to your ongoing violations and accumulated fines totaling $15,400, the Brookridge Estates Homeowners Association hereby notifies you of its intent to initiate foreclosure proceedings if full payment is not received within 60 days." Nathan froze. He read the line again. Foreclosure on his own home, for a sign, for resisting Karen. He walked inside, gripping the letter tightly, and sat down at the kitchen table where Ellie was assembling a jigsaw puzzle. "What's wrong, Dad?" she asked softly. Nathan placed the letter face down and forced a smile. "Nothing that can't be fixed." But his mind was already racing. Karen had escalated the fight to nuclear levels. No hearings, no appeals, just a legal threat, designed to force him out, not only of the HOA's way, but out of his own home. He called Lisa McConnell. She answered immediately. "She went through with it?" Lisa asked, sounding more defeated than surprised. "They're threatening foreclosure," Nathan replied. "You told me those fines weren't real." "They're not, at least not how she's calculating them," Lisa said. "She's backdating them for every day since the first sign notice. It's not proper procedure, but she found an old bylaw from 1993 that technically gives the board authority to secure liens for non-compliance." Nathan exhaled slowly. "So she's weaponizing outdated rules to crush me. She thinks if she pushes hard enough, you'll fold," Lisa said. That night, Nathan posted a new update on brookridgefacts.org with a scan image of the foreclosure notice. The headline read, "HOA threatens to seize my home over a garden sign. Here's the proof." The reaction was immediate and furious. A retired lawyer who lived 3 blocks away offered to represent Nathan pro bono. He wrote a scathing legal brief challenging the HOA's authority and accusing them of bypassing due process. Within 24 hours, the brief was filed in county court, and the judge issued a temporary injunction halting the foreclosure. Still, Nathan couldn't sleep. Every corner of his home now felt like a battlefield. The sign outside that once made him proud now felt like a target. Meanwhile, Karen remained silent, at least publicly, but inside the clubhouse, she was mobilizing her supporters. She sent out an internal HOA email blast calling Nathan a dangerous agitator who was radicalizing residents with misinformation. She accused him of undermining the community's governance and opening the door to commercial exploitation. But more than that, Karen had a new tactic. Shame. At the next board meeting, she opened with a video presentation. Slide 1, Nathan's sign. Slide 2, his website. Slide 3, a doctored image showing a hypothetical neighborhood filled with Brookridge branded signs, food trucks, and pop-up vendors. "Is this what you want?" she asked the crowd. "Because this is where we're headed if we don't act now." Nathan sat in the back, jaw tight. It was surreal, watching someone fictionalize your life in real time. Then Karen dropped the bomb. She claimed that Nathan had used HOA documents on his website without permission, and was therefore guilty of unauthorized distribution of HOA intellectual property. There were gasps. Lisa stood up. "I'm sorry, but that's not true," she said. "Those documents are public record under the HOA disclosure laws. You can't criminalize transparency." Karen's voice raised, cracking for the first time. "You're not the president, Lisa." "No," Lisa shot back, "but I'm still the treasurer, and I'm done signing checks for your personal grudge." Silence fell. Nathan watched Karen's composure crumble. Just slightly. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She simply gathered her notes, turned off the projector, and adjourned the meeting without another word. The tide was turning. That night, a local reporter knocked on Nathan's door. She'd been following the case online, and now, with the foreclosure attempt and legal filings, it had become a media story. Nathan welcomed her inside. "I'm not trying to destroy this neighborhood," he said. "I just want to live in it, fairly, and without fear." The next morning, The story ran online. HOA president attempts foreclosure over decorative sign. Homeowner fights back. Karen thought the foreclosure notice would end the battle. But instead, it cracked the dam. And the flood was coming. 3 days after the foreclosure attempt made headlines, Karen held her silence. She didn't respond to press inquiries, ignored angry residents who emailed for explanations, and even canceled her weekly morning walk where she usually waved like a celebrity in a beauty pageant. But inside the Brookridge Estates clubhouse, she was scrambling. What Karen didn't know was that the treasurer she'd long dismissed, Lisa McConnell, had begun documenting everything. Every rushed vote, every suspicious expense, every time Karen approved payments without full board consensus. And now, Lisa was sitting across from Nathan at a local coffee shop, sliding a flash drive across the table with trembling fingers. "You didn't get this from me," she said. Nathan stared at her. "Lisa, what is it?" "Proof. Karen's been lying about everything. The assessment, the attorney, even the invoices." She leaned in. "The law firm representing the HOA. It's run by her brother-in-law. It was never disclosed to the board." Nathan's breath caught. "Wait, she funneled HOA money to her own family." Lisa nodded. $82,000 in assessments, and almost all of it's already been paid to the firm. I started noticing inconsistencies when she pressured me to sign checks without proper receipts. I didn't want to believe it at first." Nathan's hands clenched around the flash drive. "That's not just unethical. That's a conflict of interest and possibly embezzlement." "There's more," Lisa said. "Karen's been using the HOA credit card for personal expenses, meals at restaurants nowhere near Brookridge, travel to Arizona, where the firm's located, even a spa bill." Nathan didn't speak for a long moment. The walls of the coffee shop seemed to lean in. "How many people know about this?" he asked quietly. "Just you and Carlos," Lisa said. "And I only told Carlos last night. We need to go public." Lisa hesitated. "If I do this, I'll be destroying any future in this community. People will say I turned on her." Nathan looked her dead in the eyes. "Lisa, she was going to let me lose my home over a sign. She lied to you, to everyone. If you stay quiet. Now, what's left of this community?" Lisa wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "You're right." That night, Nathan posted a new video. This one wasn't just an update, it was a reckoning. He didn't name Lisa, but he showed screenshots of the financial records, the payments to the firm, the matching last names between the firm's managing partner and Karen's sister. He laid it all out. The secret relationship, the unapproved spending, the manipulated board votes. And he didn't stop there. He included excerpts from state HOA regulations requiring transparency in contracts and prohibiting undisclosed conflicts of interest. He read them aloud. "This isn't just a dispute," he said. "With study, it's corruption. And it's time someone said it." The video spread like wildfire. By morning, it was shared on 3 regional news sites. Hundreds of comments poured in, some from Brookridge residents, others from around the country, sharing their own HOA horror stories. But what truly shattered the illusion was what came next. Our spokesperson from the state attorney general's office confirmed they had received 2 formal complaints related to HOA fraud in Brookridge Estates. One was from an anonymous homeowner. The other was from Lisa McConnell. Karen couldn't hide anymore. At an emergency board meeting held 3 days later, with over 70 residents in attendance, Karen walked in, pale and quiet. No gavel, no clipboard, just a folded statement in her hands. "I hereby resign from my position as HOA president," she began, her voice cracking, effective immediately. There were no cheers, just stunned silence. She turned and walked out of the clubhouse, alone, past rows of people who once followed her every word. Some looked away. Others whispered. Lisa took the podium next. "We'll be appointing an interim board until a proper election can be held. In the meantime, I've turned over all financial documents to state authorities." Then she paused and looked directly at Nathan. To the neighbors who stood up, asked questions, and didn't let fear keep them silent, thank you. Later that evening, Carlos and Nathan stood outside under the porch light, watching Ellie water her herb boxes. Think it's over? Carlos asked. Nathan exhaled slowly. Not yet. But we've got the truth on our side now, Carlos grinned. That's more than Karen ever had. Nathan nodded. The battle wasn't fully won, but the neighborhood had finally woken up, and the curtain was falling. The fallout from Karen's resignation hit Brookridge Estates like a storm after a long drought. Residents who had stayed quiet for years began attending meetings again. The clubhouse bulletin board was flooded with volunteer nominations. For the first time in a long while, the community felt like it belonged to the people, not just a small group clinging to power. But just as Nathan thought the worst was behind him, a certified envelope landed in his mailbox. This one wasn't from the HOA or the courts. It was from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Inside was a formal notice: trademark cancellation proceeding no 20-5-13 for the HOA's petition to Rev. Oak Brokerage Farms was still active, and now someone else had joined it. A private developer named Hawthorne and Pruitt Development Group had filed a supplemental motion to the case. Their claim: they were planning a new gated subdivision in the neighboring county called Brookridge Villas, and Nathan's trademark was an obstruction to branding. Nathan dropped the letter on the table and paced the living room, disbelief turning to fury. This wasn't about the sign. It was never just Karen, he muttered. Carlos arrived minutes later, summoned by a quick text. He read the letter twice. I know that name, Carlos said. Hawthorne and Pruitt, aren't they the ones who tried to buy the land behind the park last year? Nathan nodded slowly. They're developers. And guess who approved that zoning exception? Carlos raised an eyebrow. Karen. She chaired the local zoning subcommittee. Nathan confirmed. She resigned from the HOA. But not from that role, at least not yet. Suddenly, the pieces snapped together like magnets. Karen hadn't just gone after Nathan out of petty pride. She had ties to developers who wanted the brokerage name freed up, who couldn't risk a small herb garden trademark getting in the way of their luxury housing brand. Nathan's fight had threatened something much bigger than neighborhood aesthetics. It threatened a multi-million-dollar rebranding strategy. And Karen, she was the inside connection. Nathan pulled up his trademark certificate again and scanned the timeline. His registration predated the developers by 4 years. If proven, it meant he had the legal rights. But now, this wasn't just a local battle, it was a corporate one. By the next morning, Lisa returned with another bombshell. She had found emails between Karen and Hawthorne's project manager, buried in the HOA's inbox archives. The messages discussed eliminating conflict with the brokerage name months before Karen ever cited Nathan for his sign. One message read: once we neutralize the farm's name, branding Brookridge Villas becomes frictionless. I'll handle it from the inside. Nathan stared at the screen. She sold the HOA's power to private developers. Lisa nodded grimly. She weaponized the HOA not to protect the neighborhood, but to clear the path for someone else's profits. And the kicker, the HOA's $82,000 wasn't just wasted on legal fees, it had helped lay the groundwork for a corporate takeover. Nathan called his attorney and immediately filed a motion to dismiss the cancellation. With Lisa's emails as evidence and the registration timeline on his side, the case against Brookridge Farms crumbled fast. But he wasn't done yet. At the next community meeting, Nathan stepped up to the podium with a projector in tow. He didn't just explain the emails, he showed them. He detailed how Karen had used her position to align the HOA's legal actions with a private entity's branding strategy. The room was dead silent when he finished. Then Shannon from Maple Drive raised her hand. What can we do to make sure this never happens again? Nathan smiled, tired but proud. We rewrite the rules together. The residents voted that night to amend the HOA bylaws. No more closed-door meetings. No more financial decisions without a full resident vote. And a clause prohibiting any board member from holding outside zoning power without full disclosure. But the final twist came in a letter just a week later. This time, addressed directly to Nathan. The developers had offered to buy his trademark for $150,000, along with a 5-year contract to design branding and packaging for brokerage villas. Carlos whistled when he read it. They tried to take you out. Now they want to pay you. Nathan folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Let him wait, because after all the chaos, the threats, and the corruption, Nathan realized something. The power didn't come from a sign or a certificate. It came from standing your ground even when the ground starts to shake. The air felt different in brokerage estates. Where once there had been murmurs of fear and silent resentment, now there were voices, open, candid, loud when necessary. For the first time in years, residents walked past each other and actually talked, not just waved from behind closed garage doors. At the next HOA election, nearly every board seat was filled by someone new. Lisa McConnell was voted in as the new HOA president in a near unanimous vote. Carlos became vice president, and Nathan, he declined any position. I never wanted to run the place, he said during the first open-air community gathering. I just wanted to live in peace and for the people here to have a say in what affects them. The crowd clapped, not out of politeness, but out of genuine gratitude. Still, the scars Karen left behind wouldn't disappear overnight. Over the weeks that followed, investigators from the state's Homeowner Affairs Office combed through every HOA financial file, lease or turnover, Karen's actions funneling money to a relative's law firm, concealing conflicts of interest, and fabricating lien threats amounted to civil fraud and misuse of HOA funds. Karen was formally charged, though not criminally. Not yet. Her assets were frozen pending restitution hearings, her influence gone, not just from brokerage estates, but from the regional zoning committee as well. She moved out 2 months later, selling her home to pay back part of the misused funds. She didn't say goodbye. For Nathan, closure came gradually. The developers, who once threatened his trademark, sent more offers, each higher than the last. The final one reached $250,000, including a clause giving Nathan full creative control over branding for their new community on his terms. He considered it long and hard, then finally met with their team in a neutral office downtown. If I sign this, Nathan said firmly, brokerage farms remains mine. You don't get to dictate anything. I'll consult, not sell out. The company's managing partner agreed. We learned the hard way not to try to muscle people out of what they built. And just like that, the deal was signed. Nathan used the money to finally replace the aging roof on his home, expand his small greenhouse into a full backyard conservatory, and set up a college fund for Ellie. Ellie had grown quiet through the ordeal, watching everything with wide, serious eyes. But when Nathan showed her the check and explained what it meant, she beamed. We didn't lose. No, Nathan smiled. We won. The right way. Brokerage Farms wasn't just a garden anymore. It became a local name, recognized beyond the neighborhood, symbolizing integrity, perseverance, and grassroots strength. Nathan began teaching weekend workshops on sustainable gardening and small business branding. Local families brought their kids. Elderly residents came just to chat. Even Doug from Birchgourd helped build benches along the edge of the yard, turning the once controversial property into something the entire community embraced. Carlos joked, remember when this place was a battleground? Now it's a sanctuary. Lisa added, smiling. And she wasn't wrong. The HOA, once a rigid bureaucracy wrapped in secrecy, had become transparent. Financial records were now publicly posted monthly. Votes were recorded and shared. Residents could submit amendments directly. And most importantly, no one made unilateral decisions anymore. One warm Sunday afternoon, Nathan stood at his usual place in the garden, pruning basil, when Ellie came out holding a framed drawing sheet, redrawn their sign, the same one Karen tried so hard to tear down. But now with vines growing around it and smiling neighbors standing beside it. It's for your office, she said shyly. Nathan knelt down and hugged her. "You're the reason I never gave up," she grinned. "You're like the mayor now." He left. Mayor of tomatoes. Maybe. As dusk settled across Brookridge, porch lights flicked on, and laughter drifted down quiet sidewalks. The neighborhood hadn't just survived the storm. It had changed, grown stronger, not because of policy or punishment, but because one man refused to be silenced, and because the community finally realized that silence is what lets power run unchecked. Nathan walked to the front of his yard, looked up at the wooden plaque, and gave it a small tap. Brookridge Farms, Estate, 2015. Still standing. Still his. Still home.